Welcome to the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast with your host, hailing from Kokona, Wisconsin, riding a CST Tires SSI decals traveling back Yamaha YFC 450R, four-time ATV motocross national champion, number 25, Cody Jansen.
What's up, everybody?
We're back!
Welcome to the latest edition of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, episode 109 of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, CST Tires, in stock and available for purchase today at shop.csttires.com. I'm your host, Cody Jansen, saying hello to our more than 209,000 monthly Digging Deep listeners in all 101 countries in which you are listening, and this is a follow-up episode, part 2, if you will, with legendary engine builder, pioneer, and innovator, TC Racing Engines, Tom Carlson. Tom Carlson joined us for episode 104, and it was absolutely incredible. We were so proud to feature Tom's story, but in the weeks that followed, Tom would call me nearly every day with more stories to tell. Consider that along with many of you begging for a part 2, and here we are. In this one, we'll either cover topics that weren't touched on or expand upon things that were mentioned briefly. Travis Spader, a dual carb 250R, Matt White, Gary Denton, the Legends race of 2000, TC's iconic shorty muffler, more Doug Gust talk, and more, all on the docket tonight right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. Let's quickly shout out all of our incredible partners. CST Tires, go to shop.csttires.com today. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew. Thanks to SSI Decals, DID Racing Chain, Namura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, the financial advice of the Haymauer Financial Group, DP Brakes, Factory 43, Binky's Forever ATC Museum, and Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. It was big news when Manscaped announced they were making the jump into the beard products game, introducing the Beard Hedger Pro Kit from Manscaped. A premium beard sculpting machine, the Beard Hedger allows dudes like you and I to style our beards to exactly our liking with a zoom wheel featuring 20 different built-in lengths. This Pro Kit also includes shampoo, conditioner, oil, and balm for your beard, as well as a brush, comb, and scissors. Now you're speaking my language, Manscaped. And get 20% off with free shipping by using code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. So rad that Manscaped is continuing to invest in ATV racing as a longtime partner of Digging Deep. Help us keep them in the fold and involved in ATV racing by using our Digging Deep 20 code so they know you enjoy digging deep and what we're all about here. Support all these great companies that support us, and for any products that fall through the cracks, click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website to help us out. The 2023 season is in full bloom, and we both know you need parts and gear ASAP. No matter what off-road gear parts you need, Rocky Mountain ATVMC has you covered. But before you buy, simply click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website. By using our specific link, we get a percentage of what you buy on the back end, enabling you to help us out while purchasing the parts you need anyway. And did you know you can buy OEM parts from Rocky Mountain ATVMC as well? Yep, shipped conveniently right to your door. So click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner at diggingdeepatvmx.com to help us out while satisfying all your gear and parts needs. No new donors to shout out this week, but if you are interested in donating and hearing your name on the show, you can find the Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee donation links on our website. Major thanks to all who have donated, and if you can't donate but you do find yourself wanting to help us out, you can always leave us a rating and review on iTunes and Spotify. That helps us out in a major way. If nothing else, it shows our partners that you're passionate about digging deep and what we're all about. We'll get to Tom right away here, but it was important for me. I wanted to get this episode out while people were traveling to Texas. For a lot of us, that's a long trip down there, and I wanted to give everybody some listening material, of course. But on top of that, there was a number of people wanting an update kind of on the racers. We saw so much craziness obviously go down at Gatorback. We went over that in our review show on the last episode that we dropped. But for everyone that was wanting to know the riders that were going to be in and out for this event, I really only think the two guys that we're not going to see based off of injury are going to be the notable ones that we know of, Zach Decker and Cesar Jimenez, who are both healing up from their injuries suffered at Gatorback, which means As was predicted on the previous episode, I think we're going to see Chad Wienen. He was obviously giving it a go this past weekend, getting back on the quad as it looked. So I think we're definitely going to see him in Texas. And it didn't sound this way when we recorded that last episode, but Kevin Saar is in. There's no debate that Kevin Saar is going to be at this race. He's all in and ready to go. Now, there's guys that aren't going to be there. We know that John Galata isn't going to be there. He's, GNCC focused guy. We may not have a guy like Marshall Smith or Zach Harris, watch the qualifying times for those guys as you're getting your ATV fantasy teams ready. But yeah, I think that most all these guys are in. Chad Wienen is going to be in. Joel Hetrick, who we knew was going to race, but he said that he's getting back to full health. I just read that yesterday. So he's in. Kevin Saar is going to be in despite that back injury of his. So I think Texas very much is going to be business as usual, with the exception of Texas native Bryce Ford being the rider donning the red backgrounds as the current points leader. It's going to be such a fun storyline to monitor as we go here. Plenty other storylines to monitor. There's so many rookies to watch. One rider I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to drop you a little nugget right now on somebody that I think is going to thrive this weekend. Wesley Wolf. The last time that the series headed to Underground in 2019, Wesley Wolf finished in the top 5. I just have a gut feeling, I have a sneaking suspicion, Wesley Wolf is going to be strong this weekend at Underground. So as everyone heads to Underground, we're obviously wishing everyone safe travels. We're thinking of Zach Decker and Cesar Jimenez as Zach heals up from his leg and wrist injury. Cesar Jimenez heals up from a shoulder injury. For Kevin Saar, I can confirm from the Music Racing team, he is in despite those couple fractured vertebrae in his back. Chad Wienen, all things are pointing towards he is in for the weekend despite breaking his collarbone just one race ago. And one thing that I can tell you guys, we can't quite announce it yet, but you should be going for broke in ATV Fantasy at atvfantasy.com to try to win each one of these events, because winning a fantasy event is going to earn you something that's about to take this fantasy game and all the hype to a whole new stratosphere. So stay tuned, but go for broke this weekend at Underground. And now it's showtime. The 30-second board is up, it's sideways, and the gate is down. Time to dig deep.
Let's go!
All right, guys, we are back for yet another episode of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. And as promised, we brought this legend back in to share some more of his epic stories and wealth of knowledge. Brought to you by Rocky Mountain ATVMC. We value our partnership with Rocky Mountain so much. They do so much for our listeners, including our ATV fantasy winners at Daytona, none other than ATV racing legend Corey Ellis and Phoenix Racing's Jim Hardy. Each received a $50 gift card from Rocky Mountain. Rocky Mountain ATVMC is your go-to when it comes to parts, gear, and everything in between, including OEM parts. Before you buy, simply visit our website, diggingdeepatvmx.com. Click the Rocky Mountain banner on the right side of your screen, and then proceed to the gear and parts you need. This helps us out by giving us a slice of what you purchased on the back end. So take a moment and click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner at diggingdeepatvmx.com. And without further ado, I am proud to welcome back to the podcast from TC Racing Engines, Mr. Tom Carlson. Tom, here we are again. It continues to be an honor. Thank you so much for being here with me again.
Hey, Cody, thanks a lot for letting me come here. Hello, everybody. This is from the mountains of Warren, Pennsylvania.
I love it, Tom. I'm so stoked to have you back on here. And yeah, we had to give the people what they wanted. Our first episode went over so well. There were so many stories left to be told, though, which was evident, Tom, because I think you and I, man, we talked every day for at least probably 2 weeks following that first time you joined the show here. So each of us made some notes of stuff that we didn't get to touch on that first time around. And here we are now. But where I want to start, Tom, is you didn't believe me when I called you a legend the last time you came on the show. And I think that, the response to that first episode speaks for itself. So many people reached out, so many people wrote in, so many people commented. I tried to email, I took screenshots and I tried to email over as many responses as I could, but I couldn't even keep up, Tom. People adore you and they just want to hear from you. That response was pretty amazing, wasn't it?
It was pretty cool. All I did was work for a living for 30 years doing this stuff. I'm just doing my job.
That means that you deserved a little recognition, Tom. And I think that was kind of the overarching sentiment from a lot of people was, Tom just grinded for so many years, and it's cool to give you that recognition. I think that people were stoked to have you get that recognition and tell your story, right? And all that stuff. I think that people were really excited about that. And again, I know that the response was something that was meaningful to the both of us. It was really, really cool on how many people, sent in their own stories and their own memories and their own interactions with you. And that was the really special thing to me. I think that everybody had their own story, and that was a really cool thing. It kind of, I know it took you to the, the depths of your memory bank and dug up all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we did.
To me, Tom, I think the coolest thing of this whole experience is that you told me like it connected you with so many people that you hadn't talked to in years and years. So I'll give you the opportunity to mention some of the names here, but one of them was Travis Spader. You told me that, you hadn't talked to Travis in 15 or 20 years, and lo and behold, talking about him and get that kind of pushed you to get back in contact with Travis. So I think that happened with a number of people. So I'll let you kind of speak on that.
Yeah, I did. I called Travis, and we visited for probably 45 minutes talking about the old days and
sure,
trying to, gather the information and, tell an accurate story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Travis and I, he was just a young kid racing three-wheelers back in like 1985, 86, and he raced amateur. He won the 200X championship, I think, in 86, 85 or 86, and then his dad was one of my pals. I worked for Travis for like 12 years. And, we won, once he, I guess it was 86, because 87, I think he went to a 250X, and then maybe a couple years later, but he won he ran the Pro-Am 4-stroke class 91 and 92 and won. And then in 93, we went to 2-stroke. I was not, I didn't consider myself excessively qualified to work on 2-strokes, although I was very competent and had done it for probably since 85 or so. And so when Travis ran the pro class in 1993, I had stuff running pretty good. We were in the hunt for, some of the, pro class fast bikes, and we went to Muddy Creek for the opening round of the Grand National in 1993. And, as a rookie, I don't recall anybody else doing this. As a rookie, it was a rainy, muddy weekend at Muddy Creek, but Travis pulled both hole shots and won both motos as a rookie, which was unusual. I don't remember anybody else as a rookie entering the pro class and then dominating motocross at round one of the series.
Mm-hmm. No.
And, do you want to talk about Travis at Redbud mid-season?
Well, I would. So, and this is what I was going to say, is that, as I looked at my notes here of topics and stories that we didn't cover in that first show, and that was episode 104 for anybody that maybe missed that first one. I don't know how you did. I think Tom would suggest that you go to the Digging Deep YouTube channel and check out the video version, because that turned out so rad. But yeah, in that first episode, we touched on Travis, and we touched on the gold 250X motor and the dual carbs and all that stuff. But what I didn't know at the time, and what I learned from you following that, was that, yeah, he moves up to the pro class on the 250R and, is getting hole shots, wins this opener, which is amazing. That's something that happens right away, which, like you said, I think the closest comp that I can think of in recent years is Joel Hetrick did it late in his rookie season, but definitely not the first race. And,
right.
and then, yes, tell me about the Redbud story, because this is something you shared with me, but I would like to tell our listeners this.
Well, I don't remember exactly how many races we won or not, but mid-season we were at Redbud, and we had the points lead in the Grand National as a rookie. And there was a new jump, there was a new triple jump at Redbud that would become the famous Doug Gust triple a couple years later. And Travis had his heart set that he was going to be the first one to do this jump. So we had no Friday practice. Practice was Saturday morning before the first moto, and Travis is out there looking at this big jump. And, of course, he's singling in and then doubling out. And then, of course, he's doubling in and singling out. And he's sitting up on the hill watching near the end of the first practice. And there he goes. And we had never seen a quad so high. I mean, he's basically the height of a telephone pole. He must be up there, 20 feet.
Yeah.
And probably that was what happened. He went a little bit too high, and he cased it. The rear wheels didn't make it over the crest of the jump, and he cased it. He didn't crash. He blew the corner and rode off the track and went back to the pits. And he couldn't stand up. Something was wrong with his ankle. His dad's super pissed. The kid sprained his ankle. And then, of course, he couldn't stand up. And one of our friends came over and kind of checked him out a little bit and had Travis sit down. And it was determined that Travis had broke his Achilles tendon. So he was out for the season. He wouldn't be back in action for, 6-8 months. So that kind of wrecked the whole year.
Sure.
As a rookie, that he ended his career for that year by trying to do that jump.
Yeah. And you just wonder, what could have been if you want to just don't try that jump, right? And maybe he goes on to win the title as a rookie.
Yeah, Doug Gust would do it maybe the year later when it got rounded off a little bit.
And it's funny that you say that, because, when we talk to Doug, because there's so many rumors or, there's folklore of him jumping Larocco's leap, and that's not true. We talked to Doug about that on our show. What he did do is this triple you're talking about, which used to be on the other side of the racetrack. It was down like after the ski jump, and you kind of did an S down there. There's a triple one way and you turned back, and then there was a big double. And we actually shared a video that was years later. It was 2004, I believe. We shared it on YouTube, a race where you can see this triple on there, and it was big, and they weren't even doing it all these years later. We know that Doug went on to do it, in the years that followed, but later on when he's on the Z400, he's not jumping that triple anymore. So you can tell how big it was. But yes, that thing was massive. But yeah, to think about what could have been with Travis if he just wouldn't have got hurt there. And I hypothesized to you, Tom, because so many therapists and people that find their way into that part of the medical field, it starts with a sports injury. And obviously we know that he goes on to be, a physical therapist, and a really good one, and stuff today. And I hypothesized to you, I wonder if that kind of started him on that path. That's an interesting thing to think about.
Well, I don't know. We continued racing all the way till about 1997. Travis went to college probably, beginning in 94, 95, and his dad was, spending all his money for Travis's college. So, he asked me to kind of partner with help keep Travis racing. And, his dad, Ed, made an agreement that, you help pay for Travis racing and the motors that we have. I think there was 3 motors, and he says the motors will all be yours. So that's what happened. Okay. I inherited all the motors for the effort that I put forth to keep Travis racing, I think, up until 97.
And then to think, Tom, that he comes back and is racing Can-Ams in 2013 or whatever that year was. Isn't that amazing to think about? I mean, all those years, like 25 years in total go by, and he's still at the races, or back at the races.
Well, in 2004, when Timmy Farr got hired to race the new Honda, Travis calls me up because, I suppose Travis probably thought he was a serious candidate for getting a factory ride. And, I'm sure he thought that, he had dominated the sport for so long. So, Travis wanted me to put a Yamaha together for him, which I did. So he raced that periodically throughout 2004. And I don't know how long he raced it, but, definitely all of 2004.
Those are great memories. I mean, he was such a great, great racer, and yeah, obviously a legend of the sport, champion in 2000. So, you think about what could have been. I mean, Tim Farr finds his way into that ride, and that kind of sets that part of history. But just crazy to think about how the cards could have fell a little bit differently, and it probably could have changed the course for a lot of guys.
Yeah, I'm sure Travis was jealous that Timmy got a factory ride and he didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's only human to feel that way, I'm sure, especially
Right.
hindsight being 2020. But we spent some time, you and I, talking about that gorgeous photo that was sent in to us. Remember that of that red Jeremy Shell machine, that
Yes.
250X? And
Yes.
the first time you came on the show here, we touched on the dual carb 250X, but what we didn't discuss was the dual carb 250R that you developed. So
Yeah,
tell me about
too.
that. Tell me about that a little bit.
Well, we're trying to be creative, trying to, I suppose, try to find some horsepower. So, yeah, I took and cut the back of a cylinder on a 250R and put 2 reed cages. I don't remember if they were reed cages off of it, 125, but we had 2 carburetors on it. The carburetor size, the carburetor size that we used for a single carb was a 36 millimeter Electron. So I suppose these were probably a pair of 32 millimeter carbs. Okay. And the thing really hauled butt, but we couldn't run air tubes. We had to run little pod filters, so it wasn't really going to be capable of running in the muddy water. So
got it. Well, so was it hard to tune with 2 carbs on there, or tell me about that a little bit?
No, I don't think so. No, it was, I took and ran the same needle and main jet. Well, Electron doesn't have any main jet. Everything is just the taper on the needle. And,
right. Yep.
So I had, the same needle in both carbs, and, yeah, the thing really ran good. I wouldn't say it was any faster than the single carb, but it was definitely unique.
Okay. So today, and this is something that came to mind as we talked about the dual carb thing, but today, we're running these dual injector systems on our Yamahas, and
yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming that it's kind of the same concept, right?
Well, I suppose that, the idea to do it was that, if you've got 2 small carburetors that can, let's say quarter throttle, half throttle, have quite a bit of vacuum, quite a bit of velocity in the carburetor. So, I thought maybe that it might be able to have excellent torque.
Sure.
But yet, when you're wide open, you've got 2 carburetors with a lot of volume and a lot of velocity and a lot of airflow, and it definitely ran great. But it was just too. We had a 2-to-1 throttle cable.
Okay.
Two carburetor springs.
Yep.
It just wasn't easy.
It just wasn't the ticket. Yeah, I understand. But it was something that people definitely wanted to hear you talk about, because we got multiple messages about it saying, hey, the 250X isn't the only thing you put the dual carb on. The 250R was a thing too. So something that we needed to touch on there, and something that we didn't touch on that first show, but I wanted to ask you. So we dove way down the 250X rabbit hole, and we touched on the 300EX era a little bit, my era, the 300EX era. But I wanted to ask you how the 250X and the 300EX compared to each other, because obviously, you look at them, they're these air-cooled motors. They look very similar. They're obviously, they're pretty similar, right? But wanted to ask you how they compared to each other. I mean, was the 300EX that I was racing in 07, was that something that was relatively comparable to the quads that were being raced, in the decade prior?
Well, the difference would be the weight. The 250X was kickstart, and the motor was lighter. The crankshaft was lighter. Everything was lighter.
Okay.
And the 300EX, the crankshaft was bigger. The bearings were bigger, and of course, this electric start. And I did make some 300X's kickstart, like the Jeremy Shell 400cc 300X that's pictured on your podcast there.
Yep.
It had kickstart. At first it looks like a 250X because it's got a kickstart. Well, I took and was able to put the parts from a 250X kickstart mechanism in a 300X, but I did have to modify the clutch cover.
Got it.
To accommodate a seal and a bearing and the shaft and the idler shaft.
Okay.
And that bike was kickstart. And, the difference between the 250X, over time when these guys, beat on these things for 2-3 years, occasionally the crankshaft would flex and it would wreck the oil pump drive gear, and it would take the teeth off of it.
Okay.
And of course that was no good.
Mm-hmm.
The 300X never did that because the crankshaft was bigger, the bearings were bigger. There was never a problem with the oil pump gear teeth being broken off.
Okay.
And of course the 250X, over 3 or 4 years of racing, the right case half would crack from the crankshaft forward all the way to the gasket surface. So it would break about 6 inches, 3 inches forward and 3 inches sideways of the case.
Okay.
And it would happen during the race. So you're running it out of oil while you're trying to finish the race. And then of course, that happened to the majority of the 250Xs after they were raced for 10 years.
Got it. Yeah, that was a question that was on my mind, obviously, and was how they compared. And the other thing, so the craziest thought to me is that at one time, these 250X machines were being raced in the pro class or the pro 4-stroke class or whatever it was called at the time. And by the time I come along in 2006, 2007, it's a youth class. I mean, isn't that it's just a crazy thought to kind of wrap your head around.
Repeat that question again.
At one time, right, the 250Xs are, whether it was the Pro-Am 4-stroke class or the Pro 4-stroke class or whatever it was called at the time in the mid 90s, when I come around in 2006, 2007, it's called youth production. It's a youth class. It's just such a crazy thought. I've always thought that, like, what a crazy thought that is.
Well, the class was, basically 0 to 250, and it should have stayed there, and then some of the guys that were running the 250s that I built, were racing against the kids, so they wanted more displacement, thinking that would allow them to be more competitive against the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to up the displacement to 350 cc's, and, I was dead set against that. I said, if you want to make the class bigger, make 2 classes, 0 to 250 and then 251 open.
Sure.
But that's not what happened. And once it went to 350, it didn't make any difference for the guys that thought that it would help them because they were big.
Mm-hmm.
It just made the kids that were smaller a rocket ship.
Sure.
So I made these 250Xs 350 cc's. And then years later, I had to make the 250Xs 400 cc's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's nuts.
Unbelievable.
So did you ever work with Mark Maddel, Tom?
Yes.
You did. Okay. And he's on my mind because he is the acting mechanic for Jeffrey Rastrelli right now. And
is he?
Yeah, which is such a cool story because in 2007, I'm racing against both Jeffrey and Mark, and when I won the title, and then 2008, those two are battling for the title, and Jeffrey wins. 2009, Mark wins the title on presumably your machine, and then in 2011, they each won a Pro-Am title on 450s, and then they both won Pro at the same time, and that's just such a cool thought because I was just thinking about this yesterday. They grew up racing 300EXs together, and they're rivals, and then they're rivals in the Pro-Am division, and then they go pro together, and we're battling for Rookie of the Year. Mark wins Rookie of the Year that year. I believe it was 2012, and just ahead of Jeffrey. And then Mark disappears. He never races on the national scene again, but he's always been connected to it. I think he's always monitored it and followed his buddy Jeffrey Rastrelli, and yeah, now now he's wrenching for Jeffrey on the weekend. Like, what a cool thing that is. But I assumed that you had worked with Mark a little bit back in the day.
I remember doing quite a bit for him. I did a 450 for him.
Yeah.
And then I don't know how long, but I know he moved on to different things, and I haven't talked to him in 15 years.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy to think about. Like I said, I wanted to touch on that because I thought that you would have worked together a little bit. We'll get right back to the show, but now a word from our sponsors. And thank you for listening to these ads. Without these great companies, none of this would be possible. Show your support for the people who support us. The official tire choice of Digging Deep, CST tires are the choice of ATV racing's elite on the track, in the woods, and every other terrain. CST tires swept the ATV racing world in 2022 as Joel Hetrick, Bryson Neal, and Bo Barron rode their Pulse MXR and Pulse HT tires to an ATV Pro Motocross title, GNCC XC1 Pro title, and 10th ATV Pro Works Racing title, respectively. Led by champion Joel Hetrick and podium contenders Bryce Ford, Jeffrey Rastrelli, and Nick Janusa, CST's Pulse MXR tire is the most trusted tire in ATV motocross today. Available in soft and standard compounds, the Pulse MXR offers the highest level of traction, most predictable cornering, and superior wear characteristics when compared to the competition. And did I mention they have a contingency program as well? Visit shop.csttires.com to join the CST takeover today, or prepare to be beat by someone who did. The best of the best choose CST. Do you? You know we're Team Blue Crew here at the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, as the Yamaha YFZ450R is the official ATV of Digging Deep. In a move started by 8-time ATVMX Pro Class National Champion Chad Wienen, who with his next championship will become the winningest champion in ATV motocross history, we are living in ATV racing's YFZ450R era. Alongside Wienen, 7-time GNCC XC1 Pro ATV National Champion Walker Fowler welcomed a pair of new champions to the Yamaha Champions Club, as the podium-proven Yamaha YFZ450R proved to be the winning choice for Joel Hetrick and Bryson Neal. This unprecedented success for the YFZ450R, its unrivaled quality and performance, and the clear fact that Yamaha is the leading OEM supporter of ATV racing has resulted in a complete Yamaha takeover within the sport quad market. Evident by the continuation of Yamaha's Blue Crew Racer Support Program, Yamaha riders will once again cash in on payout and prize opportunities in 2023, including a chance to win a brand new YFZ450R. For more info, head over to YamahaBlueCrew.com. Follow Yamaha Outdoors, as well as the new Blue Crew official channel on social media, and check out Yamaha's full proven off-road lineup at YamahaOutdoors.com today. SSI Decals, your way. SSI Decals sets the standard with the best looking decals, graphics kits, and vinyl wraps in the industry. Established in 1947, SSI took shape as an offshoot of their parent company by doing a little work for local pro Chad Wienen. Nearly 2 decades later, and fueled by a passion for ATVs, the company has flourished into one of ATV Moto's most recognized brands. From ATV motocross, SSI has expanded into graphics and design work for top racers in GNCC, Works Racing, Pro Motocross and Supercross, Off-Road, and more, headlined by 8-time world champion Top Fuel drag racer Clay Milliken. Whether your project is big or small, SSI Decals will make your identity stick. Get started today at SSIDecals.com and use code DIGGINGDEEP10 for 10% off at checkout. Things are about to get sick. The Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast is brought to you in part by DID and their wide range of championship-winning chains. From the street to the track and everywhere in between, DID chains are designed to give you the optimal riding experience with great performance and increased chain life. Consistent to the core, pick up your box of reliability today. DID, what drives you?
We are proud to be partnered with Namura Technologies. For over 20 years, Namura has pushed the limit of value and reliability in the ATV and side-by-side market. Covering more applications than anyone in the industry, Namura's full line of cast and forged pistons, connecting rods, gasket kits, and industry-leading top-end repair kits and more have led to higher overall engine performance for your machine. Visit your local dealer or online at www.namura.com and follow along on Instagram for giveaways and exciting new products in 2023. Namura Technologies, your one-stop shop engine component supplier.
We are pleased to be partnered with Bronco ATV and UTV Components. Bronco has been an industry leader in replacement hard parts and accessories for all makes and models for over 15 years. With a catalog that includes a full line of electrical components, engine internals and cylinders, shock and suspension parts, winches, clutch kits, valves, carb kits, bearing kits, and drive chain parts, Bronco is your hard parts source for whatever you need for whatever you ride. Available exclusively through distributors around the world. Visit your local dealer or online at broncoatv.com.
So even crazier than the whole 300EX thing is the fact that Doug Gust wins a record at the time amount of events on a Z400 in the straight up pro class, not pro production, in the straight up pro class in 2004. And by 2008, the Z400 is a youth machine being raced by Joel Hetrick in the schoolboy senior class. Like, how crazy is that? Like 4 years went by from the quad that was the quad to beat in the pro class to now being a youth quad ridden by Joel Hetrick. I mean, it's just such a wild time in our sport. You know, there was so much change going on with the OEMs getting involved and the 450s and all this stuff. I mean, that always is such a gem of a memory, of a stat to me, is only 4 years went by from it being the quad to beat for Doug Gust to, you know, Joel Hetrick riding.
Well, I suppose that the comment would be that, you know, because, you know, there was just a couple engine builders building the 300EXs, and I suppose that, you know, Joel Hetrick's dad was trying to open a performance shop of his own, and of course, moving into the 300 class, you know, basically his dad would probably have to consider putting a Joel on a TC 300EX.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sure he didn't really want to do that because, you know, he's only an hour from me. And so
Sure.
They were trying to find some opening where they could put Joel on a different bike in a different class that he could win,
Okay.
you know, without having to have a TC motor.
Yeah, I didn't think about that angle. Yeah.
So that was really why it happened, because his dad was trying to, you know, establish a performance business and didn't want to have to
Got it.
use another shop to accomplish that.
Got it. So let me ask you this. So in the years leading up to 2008, you know, it would have been a couple years earlier, but Shane Hitt was racing a Z400 in probably the TT stuff or whatever. Were you helping Shane with that program at all? Or
No.
Okay.
I that was probably, you know, I would guess probably Curtis.
Okay. And the reason why I asked that, Tom, is because that's where that Joel Hetrick Z400 came from, was Shane Hitt. So I was just wondering if you would have had anything to do with that one. But
no, I didn't. You know, Shane's a very respected rider of mine.
Yep.
You know, when he was riding a lot, you know, he was kicking our butt a lot. you know, he was running a 250X. Oh my God, what's the guy's name that had this 250X that was one of Curtis's rocket ship 250Xs? And Shane would ride it at various tracks, including Pine Lake, and basically dominate. You know, the bike was a rocket ship.
Longtime Sparks guy, though. Like I said, so much change in that era of racing in the early to mid 2000s there. It's just a crazy thing to wrap your head around.
Right.
But so there was a couple names that we failed to mention in that first episode with you, Tom, including someone that you worked, I think, closer with than I ever really realized, and that being Harold Goodman, an absolute favorite of mine. So tell me a little bit about your time working with Harold.
Well, here I would go back to we'll call it the mini class, where they were running CR80s and Suzuki RM80s.
Which is where his nickname came from, correct?
No, well, it came from the LT80s, the little
Okay.
LT80s.
Okay, yes, the automatics.
The little Bumblebee bikes, you know.
Got it. Okay.
So, Big Harold was sending his Suzuki motors to, I think, a shop called RPM, and of course, Harold wanted me to work on his RM80 and make it competitive against the Hondas, and I did, and it was done in the mail. And then one day Harold drove over here, and I tuned on it and made it even better. So that made him and the other kid battle for the wins at these races throughout the rest of the season.
Okay.
They would trade wins back and forth. And then Harold the next year jumped up to the 250X class and also the 250R class.
Okay.
And I did, it was 250 4-stroke and a 2-stroke. And Harold won every heat race and every main event on his 2-stroke. And he finished second against Tom Miller in the 4-stroke Pro-Am for no other reason other than Tom Miller had been racing that class for more years.
Sure.
And but it was a great year, and it was all done in the mail. I didn't do any tuning on either one of them bikes all year.
Okay. Well, that's a curveball to me because, I assumed that the relationship would have started, with the 4-strokes like it did for so many people with you with the 250X or whatever, but it actually started on minis. That's a curveball. That's not what I expected.
The good old days.
Yeah, the good old days. That's the truth. Another guy who really raced his tail off for a lot of years and raced his tail off representing you for many years, but didn't get mentioned, and I kicked myself for that, was Matt White. I know he's local to you. Tell me about Matt White a little bit, because I didn't like the fact that we didn't touch on him the first time around.
Yeah, I helped do some work for Matt's 2-stroke, and then I did some work on his Yamaha 450, 440, I guess, in 2004. And then Matt was really good. He could hold up, he's just a skinny, wiry kid. And,
yeah.
By the time it's mid-moto, he's moving up through the pack, and, he would be very stout towards the end of the moto because of his physique. And, and then of course he got a Honda, and I built that for him. But apparently Matt had a couple shoulder injuries in his life, and his shoulder would pop out of joint.
Okay.
And it would pop back in, and he'd go racing again. And then eventually the doctor basically told him he had to quit. So
Got it. Okay. Well, those images of a TC YFZ, in 2004, 2005, that kind of era there, 2006, maybe even, that's how I think of him. And when you look at the record book from that time, or the results from that time, I mean, he won tons of Pro-Am races, and, these clips that we've been sharing on our YouTube channel of these older races from that era. I mean, you'll see him from, 7th to 10th or whatever in the pro class,
right.
a really lot. And like you're saying, a lot of it was, he was just a grinder. And that's why, I mean, he was there all the time. That's why I wanted to make sure we touched on him, because he was a great racer.
We'll make another little story. When I got invited to go to Argentina and work for Yamaha down there, they wanted me to bring an American rider. So I invited Matt. So both me and Matt White went to Argentina to race the Enduro del Verano on Yamahas.
Okay.
And I went down there to do work for George Santamarina, and George got second in the Enduro del Verano. Now, this is like 600 riders that all start at the same time. There's probably 30 that are pros.
Sure.
And I think Matt got fourth. And
okay.
Of course, it's very dangerous. You don't want to get hurt when you're not in your country, and you don't really probably have any health care to take and, pay for your hospital visit. So
yeah. And it's a totally different kind of racing too.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So that's incredible. But I knew he was super local to you, and a guy that I always associated TC with Matt White. So I couldn't believe we didn't mention him in that first episode there. And another guy who I kind of thought of it the same way, a longtime TC guy. And we did briefly mention him in that first episode, but it's Cale Downing. And I always loved Cale. He's a Midwest guy. He wore Thor gear, so I was obviously partial to him. I liked his style. Love Cale Downing, Illinois guy. Do you have any stories like that? Any memories that stick out with Cale there, Tom?
Oh yeah, it was. I had a lot of fun with Cale and his dad, and actually throughout the years, they invited me to go hunting on their property out there, and it was just fabulous. I took one of my friends out there and along with me, and yeah, it was a great time, and yeah, we're still good friends, and I haven't talked to Cale in probably 2-3 years, but I do talk to him frequently.
Yeah, and I saw I don't know if it was maybe his wife or Sage Baker was sending it to him or his wife, but they were talking. I mean, there was some talk going on around that last episode of yours amongst those guys. So I'm sure he tuned into the first episode there, which was cool. So when I think of Cale, this is funny that this is where my mind goes. But when I think of Cale, Joel Hetrick comes to mind, and there's some of my listeners out there who are surely thinking exactly what I am. They know where I'm going with this. On one of the Carpe Diem movies, I believe is what it was at the time, but a very small, very little Joel Hetrick rode Cale's 450 for what they think, or what they at least said was one of the first times Joel had ridden a 450. And spoiler alert, he was fast right away on it. But that was one of the things that comes to mind with Cale is, there's his patented orange and blue YFZ, and here's little Joel Hetrick ripping around doing all the jumps on it. It's kind of a funny memory.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Kind of a funny memory. And the other thing that's funny when I think of Cale, so I mentioned, Cale, I mentioned Sage Baker and Chad Weenan, kind of a Midwest guy, Illinois guy. He was kind of part of that clan back then, the Carpe Diem and Beating the Odds, some of those old movies. I know that people know what I'm talking about. He was kind of part of that group. And now he's an active ATV racing legend, obviously not part of that group anymore.
Yep.
So as we go from one legend, Joel Hetrick, active legend, to another, Chad Weenan, we know that TC Racing headquarters aren't too far away from Unadilla up there by you. So we shared a photo of you chatting with Chad Weenan near the podium from just a couple years back when you went to Unadilla. So tell me about that experience, at the races that day, and then that conversation with Chad. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I have never really met and talked to Chad, through Cale Downing. I knew Chad Weenan was, in a, similar area riding, and I knew Cale Downing and Chad were friends. But I never really had an opportunity to meet Chad or do anything for him. So I was just walking around up there, and I went over to visit, and of course Chad, recognized me, and we just visited.
Of course, yeah.
And that was really it. I saw that picture, and I'm in like my Hawaiian shirt.
Yep, you are. The cool thing, you had mentioned to me that you were impressed by, and this is obvious, such a great rider, but you said you were impressed by his riding style and the way that the RPMs he rode in around the corners and stuff like that, right? I mean, what were your takeaways from watching him ride amongst the rest of the class that day?
Well, Chad was using the bottom of his power band, and using his torque to get out of the corners. A lot of the corners are like 180 degrees, and so you have a lot better control of your bike when you're running on the bottom of the power band and getting it hooked up and getting the hell out of the corner. And other guys, they run on the mid to the top of their power band, and probably a little bit harder to control, and that's that.
Yeah, he's got it dialed in. He's obviously an all-time great. I mean, this run of 8 titles in 10 years is absolutely incredible, isn't it, Tom? I mean, to think 10 years ago, or I guess 11 years ago now, but we'd be sitting here and he has no titles. And to think, fast forward a decade, not only is the dude still racing, he moves to Yamaha. He went to Yamaha when basically nobody was really riding them other than Thomas Brown. And now we're sitting here and he's an 8-time champ, matching Gary Denton's record of titles won. I mean, that's such a crazy thing to have seen it come to fruition. I mean, that's just a wild thought.
Yep, exactly. Did we ever talk about Mark Burns?
We didn't, but it is in my my notes here. Why don't we touch on him now?
Well, Mark Burns won the Pro-Am class. He's from Iowa. I think it's from Mount Pleasant, Iowa. And Mark was kind of an Ironman the rougher the track, the faster he could go because he'd wear everybody out. And so he won the 4-stroke championship one year, and then he went on to the open class, and I built him his dad and him put this 350X in a 250R frame and ran the open pro class.
Okay.
And of course, they had to run against Doug Eichner on his high dollar big bore Banshee.
Yeah.
And so here's this exotic, gorgeous Banshee, and Mark Burns has got this 4-stroke, which is a brute. And of course, Mark won the Open Pro Class #1 plate that year.
Okay.
And he still got that. I had one of his friends call me last week and said that Mark's married now, got a couple kids, his dad's still alive, and they still got that bike.
Wow, how cool is that?
And I guess I don't remember what size, probably like a 475 or some darn thing.
Okay.
He still got it. I mean, it was a homemade 250R chassis and totally functional, but it wasn't a Corvette or anything.
And that's something that I remember asking you in the wake of our last conversation, and then doing tons of digging, for articles and photos and stuff that we talked about was, talking about that era of, 250Xs and 350Xs and stuff like that, and asking you, because some people were running like hybrids, basically, where it was a 250X in a 250R chassis and stuff like that. And I had asked you if that was something you had done, and you said that your guys, for the most part, you didn't think that was really the case when it came to those machines.
Well, everybody was putting their 4-strokes in 250R chassis.
Okay.
And I did one with Tim Weaver. We put that 350X in a brand new 250R. We took and stuck this 4-stroke in it, and
Okay.
Tim raced it in the pro class, and obviously made history with that bike.
Right. That was the first ever 4-stroke to win, right? Correct? Tim Weaver?
Yes, It was. That was 1988. We won the Open Pro Class in a TT against the factories. The factories were still involved.
And that's what makes it so notable, is it's the first 4-stroke to win one of those Open Pro races.
We went to Pine Lake, and of course, Suzuki had 3 riders. They had Gary Denton, Putnam, and Jeff Watts.
Okay.
And of course, Don Turk on a Yamaha.
Okay.
That was a factory rider, Don Turk.
Okay.
And then of course all the Suzukis were all motors put in a 250R frame, so that the bike wasn't quite the monster quad that the Suzuki 500 was.
Okay.
And Gary Denton's bike was the fastest. It went like 79 mile per hour down the. But the 4-stroke was such an animal on traction and torque that, Tim says, it didn't make any difference because he's 2 seconds a lap faster than Gary.
Okay.
So we destroyed him on the whole shot, and then we were already a straightaway ahead at the end of the first lap.
You just mentioned Gary. So in the wake of that first conversation there, the 8-time champ Gary Denton told us that we had to ask you about the bat story. Tell me, tell my listeners about that, Tom.
All right. Well, I live out here in the sticks, and I still have, this is what's left of a 39-acre farm along the river. Okay. And I have 4 acres here against the mountains. A trout stream runs through my yard, and the barn is still here attached to my shop. And of course, everybody's got bats flying around their yard, and of course, I would get my .22 rifle with bird shot and try to plink at these things occasionally, and so me and Gary Denton and Arlen Lehman from LRD were outside, after Pine Lake. They came to my house, and we're kind of plinking at these bats that are, 50 feet up in the air, and probably on Gary's first or second try, he hits one. So that's what he's talking about, that he was able to hit a bat at about 50 feet up in the air with a 22 bird shot.
Got it. Okay. Man of many talents. That's funny. And you actually went to Gary's Hall of Fame induction last year, right, Tom? Tell me about that experience a little bit.
Oh, that was pretty cool. I've never been to anything. I've never been to the AMA Museum. The AMA Museum was pretty cool because it had all kinds of bikes that go back to the late 1800s,
From every era, exactly. Yeah.
I think one of them had like wooden wheels, and
yep.
And so yeah, I didn't really recognize Gary. He would have been, probably his late 50s, maybe 60.
I think so. I think 60 or they're just.
And he dyed his hair, so I didn't really recognize him at first.
He's still as cool as a cucumber, though. He's still the same Gary Denton. Still the same Gary Denton.
Well, I'll tell you an interesting story about that day when they came here and stayed at my house. I took them canoeing down the river. Gary and Alan went in a canoe, and me and my friend were in a canoe. And of course, Gary's competitive about everything. So, my buddy's fishing and Gary's fishing, and they're kind of having a contest to see who can catch the most fish. And we're getting near the end of our canoe ride. We go 6-8 miles down the river, and we're getting close to a railroad trestle that goes over the river. The river braids, and of course, at the end of these little islands, there's a bunch of seaweed or whatever you want to call it. And of course, Gary's casting his lure towards the seaweed, which is where the fish are hiding, and of course it always gets snagged. And so Gary's yanking on this doggone fishing lure, 30 feet away from the canoe, and he's tugging and tugging and tugging, and me and my buddy, we're already have our boat probably beached because we're getting ready to get out. Mm-hmm. And they're over there fighting that doggone lure. And then all of a sudden that lure comes out, and it's coming right at Arlen.
Oh, my gosh.
So Arlen leaves to get out of the way, and there goes the canoe, and he capsizes his canoe, and both these guys are swimming like frogs in the pond.
Oh, my goodness.
So, we're laughing our asses off because Gary and Arlen are swimming.
Of course. Oh, my gosh. That's funny stuff. Like you said before, the good old days.
The good old days.
We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin.
The following message is brought to you by Manscaped.com. The Manscaped engineering team has outdone themselves this time, creating the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, now available for purchase in the U.S. and Canada. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, an official sponsor of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, with this exclusive offer of 20% off and free worldwide shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at Manscaped.com. I'm one of the first people to try the new 4.0, and I am blown away. This thing is next level. What sets this trimmer apart from all the rest? The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. It features a new multi-functioning on-off switch with travel lock for those of us who like to travel. And my favorite, the new trimmer allows you to customize your trim with 4 different guard lengths, an upgrade from its predecessor that only featured 2. If you're listening, you know that good tools are a must, so wait no more to get the best tools for the job. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at Manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at Manscaped.com by using code DiggingDeep20.
Hey everyone, this is Larry Mills, president of DP Brakes North America and proud partner of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. We at DP Brakes are a longtime supporter of ATV racing and the world leader in sintered brake technology, dominating the ATV world for decades by supporting the best four-wheel racers on the planet. This year's lineup includes Jeff Rastrelli, Mark Baldwin and Baldwin Motorsports, Ford Brothers Racing, Nick Janusa, and many more, including Mr. Digging Deep himself, Cody Jansen. Plus all the top 17 GNCC pros such as 7-time champion Walker Fowler, Bryson Neal, Hunter Hart, Cole Richardson, Jared McClure, Adam McGill, and previous champion Chris Borich. These top riders continue to appreciate the high performance and impressive durability that their DP brakes have to offer, products that ultimately help place them on top of the podium week after week. DP brakes are available through www.dp-brakes.com or you can purchase them through your local Parts Unlimited stocking dealer, or you can even message us, myself, Larry Mills, or DP Brakes on Instagram or Facebook. And if you have any questions about product or sponsorship support, please ask us. We are waiting for you. Join the best ATV riders in the world equipped with DP Brakes, and have a great year, everyone.
Nearing 2 decades into the brand's existence, Factory 43 is back and better than ever, continuing to make major waves in the ATV world. For the 3rd consecutive season, Factory 43 is the official aluminum parts choice of the Phoenix Racing ATV team, providing their state-of-the-art Evo Nerf bars, MX-style front bumpers, and grab bars for 2-time champ Joel Hetrick. If you're in the market to upgrade your Nerf bars, bumpers, or grab bars, head over to factory43atv.com to see their full line of industry-leading products available for all makes and models. Head over to factory43atv.com today.
Success in the ATVMX world is similar to what creates financial success as well. The right people, the right advice, and more importantly, hard work and the benefit of an ongoing relationship as situations change and adversity is experienced. Do you have the right financial advisor to help you reach your goals? Haymauer Financial Group can create a personalized, goal-based plan to help your family prepare for whatever life brings. Call me, Scott Haymauer, at Haymauer Financial Group, a private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services, at 920-338-8150. That's 920-338-8150. Offices located in beautiful De Pere, Wisconsin, with registrations and clients nationwide.
Headlined by their 4130 Chromoly, Launderville Steel and Concrete Supply is a full-service steel supplier of new and surplus steel, aluminum, and stainless steel products. This racing family-owned full metal service center and concrete product supplier comes with over 30 years of experience serving the entire United States from their central Midwest location. As the #1 choice for nationwide shipments and with available next-day delivery in select areas, LSE has you covered near or far. 4130 is not just the chromoly tubing and plate used in the building of chassis for an array of motorsports applications, but it is also the name of the newest addition to the pro paddock with riders Jaden JJ Launderville and Max Lindquist, introducing the new 4130 Motorsports team. Launderville Steel offers a large selection of material for any project, including their concrete division that can supply everything you need to complete your next business or personal project. For a quote or more info, visit laundervillesteel.com today or give them a call at 715-675-6193. That's 715-675-6193. Here at Digging Deep, we have an obvious passion for ATVs and pridefully enjoy sharing the sport's history. Since 2019, when the podcast was born, we've been working to partner with individuals who share our passion, but one man and his vision had been missing from our partnership group. Until now. When it comes to the sport's history, the hallowed grounds of Binky's Forever ATC Museum has it all. Binky Tapscott's mind-blowing collection of 3- and 4-wheelers has preserved history by spanning all makes and models from Honda 3-wheelers in chronological order to unique builds that shaped ATV racing as we know it, like Doug Gust's iconic DRZ-powered hybrid thumper and everything in between. There's no denying Binky's passion, a passion that we certainly relate to here at Digging Deep. Binky's goal is to share his amazing collection with fellow enthusiasts by making his prized possessions accessible to the public via scheduled visits. Follow Forever ATC Museum on Facebook and watch foreveratc.com for further updates on possibly getting a chance to see Binky's Forever ATC Museum for yourself. We are proud to welcome Binky's Forever ATC Museum to the Digging Deep family. Thanks for listening, and remember to support our partners. Now back to the show. Okay, Tom, I got a few more questions for you. We want to get this episode out today for everyone traveling to Texas. So winding down a little bit here, but I want you to tell the story of the Legends race at Ashtabula in 2000. You raced it, but that wasn't your initial plan. So tell me about that.
Well, I'd always gone to Pine Lake and my 3-wheeler, and I won a lot of races on my 3-wheeler. I'd go ride maybe a week before the event to get the cobwebs off of my arms, and of course this Legends race, I was technically the old man. These guys were all 50, and I'm I was in my late 50s probably, and so I had no idea. I had no plan to race it. I've never raced a 4-wheeler anyway, and so that was my plan. And so obviously they had practice on Friday for the guys that were going to race it, and I didn't go to their little Legends autograph session because I didn't consider myself a legend like the factory guys. I just didn't. I really didn't think about me being a legend of Pine Lake. I guess you could say that I was, but
Mm-hmm.
not on a national level.
Okay.
So anyway, Bud Fisher kind of rags on me when I get there on Saturday morning and says that, why didn't you show up here last night? I told him I wasn't no legend. You're going to race? And I says, no, I'm not going to race because I'm the old man. He says, well, you're technically not going to be the old man. He says, Dave Arnold is coming from California and he's going to be flying in tonight. So you're not going to be the oldest. Dave Arnold's like 62. And I'm like, shit. I'm like, shit. And he says, Dave Arnold's going to start on the third row. And he says, so if you want to ride, you can start on the third row with Dave. Oh my God. So I go talk to my friend Kevin Muma over at Lost Creek, and he's going to loan me one of his bikes. I don't know if it was his bike or Dunkelberger's.
Okay.
And I go out there and practice on Sunday morning. And luckily, because I'd raced her so long, I knew how to get around the track and which way the track goes. So yeah, I start on the third row. And of course, you're on pavement a long time when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And Jimmy White is ahead of me on the second row on his Kawasaki. And I basically was going so fast off the line that I had to shove him out of the way. So I was basically going in turn one, probably around third place. But this is a kickstart only Yamaha, and I didn't want to. So I wasn't very fast on the infield. I was dogging it around all the corners. So I would lose about 1 or 2 places every lap, and I probably ended up 12th or something.
Okay.
I don't know how many. There might have been 20 of us. I don't remember.
Yeah. There it surely looked from the photos that I've seen that it was a full class, a class of very worthy legends. My question for you was going to be if you utilize that patented, slide-in move, down the backstretch there, but maybe that's not
hell no. No, my maneuver that worked throughout the years was, when Factory Honda came there in 85,
uh-huh.
We had, there was a lot of us guys that could ride three-wheelers good, slide good. But Stevie Wright especially would go down that straightaway at Pine Lake, and while that bike was wide open, he would be able to pitch it sideways. And everybody else is letting off for a second before they pitch it sideways under power or with their brake, and he would just gobble them up.
Sure.
So I made up my mind I'm going to learn how to do that. But what a bitch that was to figure out how to do that.
That's what you said.
It was tough. But after I figured it out, well, then, that maneuver is what allowed me to win, I think, 12 out of 13 years that I raced there.
Yeah.
All because of that. Not that I was a better rider, but that was the key. That was the thing.
Yeah, you had said that it was a mental hurdle to make that work. To toss that thing into the corner like that. You had to get over a mental hurdle to make it happen.
Yeah, I raced against Timmy Farther one time back in 1988 or 89. Timmy's on a 200X.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. Timmy was running on a Fisher cycle. I think his bike number was 99.
Wow.
I think 99.
That's amazing. Yeah, that Legends event in 2000 looked to be really cool, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Well, I remember at the end of that race, I think Gary Denton was just about ready to lap me.
Okay.
At the end of the race.
Okay.
I think Marty Hart was next. I think both of those guys were battling for the front. I think Gary won. Marty Hart was probably second.
Got it. Okay. Something
like that.
Yeah. So some of the photos even from that event were super, super cool because there's a photo of you and Curtis near the starting line, you and Curtis Sparks there. And I've had enough conversations with you now, Tom, to know that you and Curtis are kind of bonded at this point after all these years. So I just thought that was really cool. I mean, you're obviously competitors. In the first episode, you talked about how you guys pushed, to push each other to be better. And yet there you were sharing kind of that moment. I just thought that was special.
I would guess that photograph was probably Saturday in a heat race for Curtis when I had nothing to do because I wasn't going to be in that event until the next day.
Got it. That makes sense. Yeah.
And yeah, Curtis and I were rivals, but yeah, over the years, there's definitely a lot of respect for me and Curtis, as well as the other, as well as the other engine builders as well. I'll talk to Mark Baldwin occasionally. I'll talk to D. Manchek occasionally because we both like shooting rifles. And
sure, yep.
I've only met Dan Lamy at a couple of the racetracks like Pine Lake, but we do know each other, and I know he knows that I talk highly of him. So
yeah, that's one thing that that you pride yourself in, is that you talk highly about all those guys. You said you just had talked to Mark a little bit yesterday, but it's funny how ATV racing bonds so many of us, especially competitors. No one understands us or the way that we think like our competitors do, because no one can truly relate to us like they can. So that's a really special thing.
Well, let's take and have a quick conversation of this bike that I built for Jeremy Schell back in 1988.
Okay.
That 300X Lager bike.
Sure.
When I saw the picture of it, you kind of forget about some of this crazy stuff that you built. That bike was a 300X that I put a kickstart in, and then of course I made it 400 cc's, but it did have a 350X cylinder head on it. I barely remember doing that. And I think it was all done in the mail. That bike was never here at my shop. I built that in the mail for Jeremy.
Okay.
I built the pipe here at my shop, and of course, I tried to make it an equal head pipe length, which was really rare for a 350X pipe. They were all, one head pipe was like 4 inches longer than the other one as they sneak from the left side of the motor and come out on the right side. And
okay.
Pretty crazy days. It was a good memory to see that picture.
So one thing you did just touch on there, and we haven't touched on this a ton, is those TC shorty pipes that everybody had back in the day. And you were kind of filling me in a little bit on how that all started, but they basically, that initial idea, your initial shorty, that all started with your own builds of your own machines, correct?
Well, back in 1984, 85, I was making some homemade performance pipes for my 200Xs as well as others, and I would use silencers, maybe a Kirker, maybe a Super Trap, basically whatever I could find and make it work. I would dyno it and make them all work. Eventually, the Super Trap Shorty was readily available. I would usually buy just a full system, a full slip-on system for a 350X.
Okay.
And I would use the megaphone and make it work for a different bike. And then I'd have my silencer, and I would make this little road race tip to go on the back of that silencer, and I would make it all by hand, inserting an adapter into the closed end cap. I would put this billet inside that and machine it and make it look pretty, and of course it would have a really crisp sound to it, and it looked great. And then eventually over the years I had those things made, and I would guess the Super Trap Shorties I've probably made somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 of them.
Wow. 2,000
or 3,000. And of course, when we had what we'll call these hybrids, where they're putting CR 450s or YZ 400 or YZ 426 in 250R chassis, no one made any pipes. So that was kind of like my forte, is I would make pipes for these hybrids.
Got it.
Curtis did too. So it was basically me and Curtis. It wasn't Yosh, it wasn't Pro Circuit, it wasn't FMF.
Sure.
So we made a lot of pipes for all these hybrids that were being raced throughout the United States.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And of course the Shorty was a really long-lasting silencer. It was rubber mounted. It didn't shake apart. It didn't break off the tab where it bolts to the frame. It lasted forever. Mm-hmm. And of course they were loud.
They were loud, but it was a good pipe.
They were loud.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they were really torquey. They really ran good.
They really did.
I made them for 250Xs, 300Xs, 350Xs, YZ400, 400EX, everything. I made them for Cannondales.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I made them for Team Nax was sponsored by Wyleco, but Mark Burns was racing a Cannondale. He wanted me to make a pipe for it, and I did. And then they tested that pipe at Cannondale, and that's what they wanted to use. That's what so they would put like a Wyleco sticker on their bike, but they would run in my pipe.
Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. It's something that we had to touch on because so many people wrote in talking highly of the TC Shorty, because basically everybody, if you were around in the, the late 90s, early to mid 2000s, even into the later 2000s, I mean, everybody had a TC Shorty at one point or another. So that's amazing.
Well, I remember one guy commenting on your Facebook or whatever that you sent me the email that he says that he can't hear now, like because of that pipe. Well, I guarantee you I can't either.
Right. We had a number of those comments. So yeah, they were loud, but they worked. They worked well.
Especially on the Yamaha was the one that was brutal. The Yamaha was maybe where it came out from underneath the fender. Yeah, you better have your helmet on, and it was really loud.
She barked. That's funny stuff. Okay, so one of my last questions for you, Tom, here is one that I asked you late in episode 104. I asked you for your favorite memory with Doug Gust, and I know that a few things have come to mind since that day. I know you talked to Doug a little bit since then too, so I'll give you the floor to kind of elaborate on that.
Well, there's one thing I can remember, but it wasn't when I was associated with Doug Gust.
Okay.
I remember going to Muddy Creek, and according to Travis said this was like 1996 or 1997.
Okay.
We're down at Muddy Creek, and it must have been in the moto on Saturday. And Doug Gust is doing this jump on the other side. I think it was a triple, and there wasn't much landing. And we were running the track backwards.
Okay.
The track was running clockwise instead of counterclockwise. And,
sure. Yep.
And so, Doug was winning. And I think he was winning. But anyway, he took and cased it over there. He hit so hard, I think he broke both of his heels. His helmet hit the crossbar so hard, it knocked him unconscious. Now he's crashing his brains out at like 45 mile an hour, unconscious. He might have broke some ribs. I mean, he was out there laying for a long time, and he ended up in the hospital. Joe Bird on practice on Sunday morning, after you would normally do the start today, you do a U-turn up the hill and you go down a little staircase and make a right-hand turn and go around the track.
Yep.
And of course, Joe Bird was coming up that staircase and trying to double the last jump to get into the corner and land and do a 180.
Okay.
And he had to kind of pre-jump really hard and yank the bike. And of course, now the bike's going vertical. The bike's probably 8 feet in the air, and then he's got to jump off, and he lands on his ankles right in front of me and breaks his ankle. And of course, there is a tape when Byron Goggin was filming the races. It shows me and another guy carrying Joe Bird off the track. So him and Doug Gust were in the hospital at the same time.
Yeah, same weekend. You lose both of those guys. My goodness.
And I think Travis said, well, that was, I talked to Travis like 2 weeks ago. He said, yeah, I won that race because those guys got hurt, I think that's what he said. So
Okay. Well, that's quite the memory there. And then you were telling me about an infamous air wheelie by Doug Gust at Redbud years later, right? Tell me about that.
When we had the DRZ, and it would be the first time we raced it, it might have, the pro class, you probably had, my guess is you had 2 Moto number 1s, and of course they were going to take, 20 guys out of 30 people, and then you're going to run maybe an LCQ. And anyway, so after you go around Redbud, 2/3 the way around, there's a jump where you sky off of this little round knoll, and you go out into the air, gliding over the top of the hill, 6-8 feet off the ground for 50, 75 feet.
Okay.
And I think what happened was, Doug's going off this jump, probably in first place, and I'm going to guess he's probably got the thing pinned in second gear. And as he's coming to the top of the jump to get it launched, he launches it and clicks third gear while he's already in the air, and the bike loops. So now the bike is totally vertical and going more. So as he's going down the slope of that hill, he had to toss the bike away. And of course, he crashed his brains out. The bike bounces and bends the A-arms, and I think we had to run an LCQ, or we worked on the bike and got it back in the race for Sunday.
That was the start of the DRZ thing, though, right? I mean, that was
right
pretty early on. Yeah, pretty early on there. That's crazy.
Yeah, that was like the second Forster, the second motocross or third motocross that we'd run it.
Yeah. So do you think it jumped out of gear? Is that what you think it did, or what do you think happened?
I think he still had the original shifter.
Okay.
And Doug just didn't get his feet out of the way. We weren't used to racing this bike much. Obviously he didn't practice on this bike because I had it. He only practiced at the racetrack, and
of course, yeah.
We did change the shifter after that event and put a different shifter on it, and that never happened again.
Okay. Well, yeah, I knew that there was a couple Doug Gust stories that came up in the time since then that you couldn't think of at the time, and I figured that there was no better way to kind of wrap things up than with Doug Gust and the legendary DRZ powered hybrid thumper.
I remember you were asking me, what was the most memorable race that I ever had. Well, I'm racing my 200X. I'm at Deerfield in Ohio, which is not far from Pine Lake. It was a great flat track. A lot of us guys were going over there racing. And you better go over there well prepared, because this is where the fast guys are. And, of course, you better have some horsepower.
Okay.
And, of course, I'm on my three-wheeler. Tim Weaver went on the big bike, and he won. Well, they didn't have enough three-wheelers. So they put the 200Xs in the 250 Pro class with two strokes.
Okay.
And there's a guy on a Suzuki Dynaport Suzuki 250. And there was probably 3 or 4 200Xs. And, of course, I rode Deerfield good. And I'm chasing this guy on this 250. And I am wide open, and I could go through turn 1, turn 2 oval better than him. I could get a drive on him coming off of turn 2 and go down this back straightaway. But, of course, I didn't have enough horsepower to drive by him, but I could get up alongside him. So this kid's riding his ass off. I'm riding my ass off. I've got my front wheel up underneath his rear bumper constantly. And I'm inside. I'm outside. And I'm up alongside him on coming out of turn 2 every lap. And I might be able to get my front wheel 2 feet past his front wheels, but I can't keep it because the straightaway's too long. And this went on for probably 15 laps.
Wow.
And he never made a mistake.
Wow.
And it was an incredible race. I was tickled to death because we both rode our butts off, and I didn't win, and we shook hands. So it was one of the memorable races that I ever had that I didn't win, but he never choked, and I took and beat on him hard, but he never faltered.
Yeah.
I don't know what his name is. Obviously, he's from up in New York State.
Okay.
And it was on a Dynaport built 250 Suzuki.
Sure. I mean, that's one of those things, though, that when you leave it all on the racetrack, there's no better feeling, even as long as you knew you gave it your all.
Oh, if he would have brake checked me, I would have crashed. I'm literally. He's wide open coming off of this corner, and I've got my front wheel about touching his airbox, and I'm wide open and waiting for him to just make a sliver of a mistake, and I'm going to the right inside, I'm going left, I'm going every which way, and I couldn't make him bobble.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. Pretty
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Like I said, win, lose, or draw. I mean, those are memories that last forever. And it's funny how, it doesn't matter how much time goes by, those memories like that you hold on to for forever. It's just one of those things.
So I can't think of anything quickly that's would inspire these people to continue racing, but I'm sure there is.
Well, that's okay. We got to save some stuff for episode 3, Tom. I mean, we can't empty it all right now. But what about Marty? How have we done any work on Marty's Z400 yet? LTZ.
I've got everything here to do it. I'm all ready to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't talked to him in like a week and a week.
Okay.
My wife was in the hospital for a week down in Pittsburgh, so I kind of lost track a little bit there. I had to take care of her. She's all right.
Good. Yeah. I wanted to ask about how she was doing. I knew that she had a little something.
Yeah, she had a little piece of her lung taken out.
Okay. Well, glad to know that she's doing.
They were suspectful it was something, so we just got it removed, and she's all right.
Good. Well, I'm glad she's doing okay. But Tom, I can't thank you enough for this every time. I mean, I'm so thankful for your time and so grateful to call you a friend. And I'm honored to share all these memories with our listeners. It's stuff that I think everybody eats up. But yeah, like I said, we can't go over it all right now. I mean, we've got to save a little for next time. I mean, people are going to want more and more.
Well, I'm just trying to think if there's anything that would be interesting that we're missing. I do remember Matt commenting that you sent me that my hair color is about the same as it was 25 years ago. Luckily for me, I still have my hair that, our hair looked like, we grew up with the Beatles and the Beach Boys, so I kind of made my hair look like the Beatles when I was young.
Right. No, you're exactly today how I remember you, 15, 16, 17 years ago. I mean, I think you're exactly the same. It's like time stood still, but Tom, I don't think you can fight me anymore that you're a legend. I think that so many people have chimed in at this point, and like I said, I'm sure we'll be back to do part 3 at some point here, but I would absolutely love to do that, of course. But again, just can't thank you enough for your time and taking a little of your time out of the shop, wrenching on stuff to sit here with me and remember some of these stories. It's always so much fun.
Yep, I'm still working. I'm still in my shop right now, working on Mac Moore's kid, Cole Moore's 450 Honda.
Okay, well, I love to hear that.
Trying to get it ready to go to a race down in, where's that, North Carolina or something in 2 weeks?
Probably, yeah, probably. Yeah.
All right, Cody, will you take care of yourself? And I'll sign off and I'll say goodbye to everybody.
This sounds perfect, Tom. I'm going to lock myself here in the studio and get this thing hammered out, get this episode out, so everybody on the way down to Texas later this week, can have this thing to listen to. But Tom, you're the best. I can't thank you enough, and look forward to doing this again.
Take care, everybody. I'll see you later.
That's legendary engine builder from TC Racing Engines, Tom Carlson, right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, brought to you by Rocky Mountain ATVMC. Click that banner on our website, diggingdeepatvmx.com, for all your gear and parts needs. Thanks so much, Tom. Have a great day, buddy. TC is the best, man. Major thanks to tonight's featured guest, legendary ATV racing engine builder, innovator, and pioneer, TC Racing Engines, Tom Carlson. And before we get out of here, we have a voicemail to play. Roll it, Dallas.
Hey, what's up, Cody? This is Jesse. I was one of the winners from the 88 Live to Ride, Thomas Brown, Chad Wynn Ride School. Dude, I just want to say thank you, man, for your part. I know we did a little video, Nick and I, at the very end of the ride school. I don't know if Chad sent that to you, but I realized now I'd never got a chance to thank you, man. So, dude, I really appreciate it. That was the coolest thing ever. I've never been in a national. That was my first time, so I was stoked to go and check the track out with Chad and Thomas and have them, give us some tips and stuff. I got smoked in the national, man. I didn't do too great, but I had a blast. It was so cool. Shout out to Gatorback for letting us go out there the week before. Thank you again, Debbie, for 88 Live to Ride. That was cool, man. I just want to say thank you again for letting us, for putting that out there and giving us that opportunity, man. So thank you, man. Love the show. Can't wait to hear the next episode, man. Take care. Thank you.
Man, you are so welcome. We were stoked to be a small part of that with Chad and Thomas. Thanks so much to those guys. And most of all, thanks to Debbie at 88 Live to Ride. She is the absolute best. Thanks to producer Dallas Jansen, my brother, for all his hard work. Thanks to Brooke and AMA official Harv Whipple. Thanks to our donors. You know who you are. We appreciate you so much. Thanks to all of our partners. CST Tires. Go to shop.csttires.com today. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew. Thanks to SSI Decals, DID Racing Chain, Nemura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, the financial advice of the Haymara Financial Group, DP Brakes, Factory 43, Binky's Forever ATC Museum, and Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. Support all the brands that support our show, and don't forget to use those codes to save. Find it all on our website, and be sure to click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner for all your gear and parts needs and to help us out. And most of all, thanks to you guys for listening. You can still get in on all the fun by signing up for ATV Fantasy today at atvfantasy.com, and at shop.diggingdeepatvmx.com. You'll find our brand new alternative logo shirts and hoodies. I can't keep these things on the shelf. I'm wearing one right now. So stoked on those. If you're looking for another easy way to help support us, you can visit our website and click the Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee buttons. This allows you to set up a one-time or monthly contribution to support our efforts. Just like you heard, you can leave us a voicemail. We'd love to play it on the show. That number is 920-569-3519. That's 920-569-3519. Follow the show on social media, Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, and myself, Cody Jansen, for additional content, coverage, and more fun stuff as this 2023 ATV motocross season is in full swing. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. All episodes, additional podcast providers, sponsor links, and discount codes, show merchandise, fantasy info, and more can all be found on our website, diggingdeepatvmx.com, so check that out today. Be a friend, tell a friend, please download, subscribe, rate, review, and share. And with that, for Tom Carlson, Brooke Jansen, Dallas Jansen, and I'm your host, Cody Jansen. Thanks for listening to and making us the most listened to podcast in ATV racing, with more than 209,000 downloads last month in 101 total countries. Until next time, thanks for joining us in Digging Deep with the Stars of ATV Motocross. See you next week for our Underground Review Show. Things are crashing and burning here at the Digging Deep podcast, much like the Titanic.
Those guys were hauling ass, for real.
I remember watching Doug Gust, I don't know who it was, Steel City, running the same times Friday afternoon as James Stewart was on Sunday back then. It was mental. I've never seen quads go that fast.
Quad leaders are freaking gnarly.